Yo, I am on tour. Come see me do stand-up comedy in a city near you, especially if you live in places like Atlanta, which I'll be at tomorrow night at City Winery. Tickets are running low. Come out and see me if you're a timely podcast listener. And if not, and if you're catching this a little bit late, no worries. Atlanta, that show absolutely ripped. Standing ovation. It was crazy. Even the staff was like, oh my God, that's the best show we've ever seen. Wine everywhere. It's a whole thing, right? But I will be in Richmond, Virginia next week on Wednesday, October 9th, and then Virginia Beach, October 10th. Never been to either of those places. Don't know what to expect, but I hope you guys come out, or else it'll be sad. And then I'll be in Pittsburgh, October 23rd, Buffalo, October 24th, Cleveland, Philly, Denver, Phoenix, Nashville, and then Minneapolis in January. Wow, all those cool cities. Which one are you coming to? Comment where you're coming to and from. Anyways, I have a podcast, and it's about to start right now. We're going to talk about New York City and also Connecticut. Okay, let's go. Dude, I meant to have like the Alicia Keys song pulled up. Come to New York and so did some pay to. Now you're in New York. What? Oops, killed that by accident. Hey, everyone. Here we are, back on the podcast. Skipped last week because I can, and now we're back. And how are you? I'm feeling pretty good. Life's good. Life's a little crazy. I'm hitting that point of the tour season where it's just kind of nonstop. And, the fall just gets gnarly. A lot of East Coast cities, I'm going 3 weeks in a row and then 1 week off and then another week on the road. So I'm rocking and rolling right now. This is definitely the part of the year where it starts to get a little intense and I start to get a little like burnt out. And I remember feeling that way last year too. Right around the fall, I was like, whew, this is getting like intense, right? But I'm feeling good. I'm excited to see everyone. Show's been great. I want to talk about the New York show, man. What a big deal this was, man. It was, New York City, I think is a big market for everybody. But for me, I think that my most followers in that city. I have a giant email list there. New York is a big market for me and a lot of other people too. So, playing it was a big deal. And last year, I'm going to do the way this is going to work, I'm going to do the background of the shows and then the travel and then the shows itself, right? If in case you're new to the show. And please subscribe, by the way, to the channel. I'd appreciate it. I know I'm keeping the YouTube content not as free-flowing as the other socials, but I'm a one-man band over here. Do I need to start delegating work to other people? Yes. Do I trust other people? No. So here we are. Last year, I did this club called Stand Up New York, and it seats 100 people. And I sold out 2 shows on a Friday night, and that was a big deal. And then that was right after that, I signed with my agent, and she got me an added show at this place, City Winery, which is popping up everywhere, as kind of an alternative comedy club venue, which is the place I'm playing in Atlanta tomorrow. And it was another 160 seats, sold that out. So we sold about 400 tickets in New York. So it was, coming back to it, it's like, all right, where do we go now? Because I didn't want to do another club that seats 100 people. And so there was a thought, and my kind of dream was I wanted to play Gramercy Theater. And you heard that right, theater. Yeah. And look, I'm not Willie B, the theater guy yet, but that theater seats, I believe, 450 people, maybe 500, at most 500, anywhere between 400 to 500. So knowing that was there, I was like, well, we could do Gramercy, and that was a thought. And the more I sat with it, the more I was like, I don't know if I want to do that, because the venue's bigger doesn't mean the show is going to be better. And that's a lot of tickets, right? I'm not selling crazy yet. The growth is there, but I'm not like, guaranteed we'll sell out Gramercy. And I think I don't want to half sell it. I don't want to sell. And it would also be on like a Thursday night, so I was a little weary of it. And we agreed, like, let's push it. Let's do it next time. And I suggested, she suggested, do I want to do New York Comedy Fest, right? Put my show in this festival, similar to what I did with Netflix as a joke. And New York Comedy Festival is a big deal. And again, I kind of opted for no, because I didn't want to be competing with like Mulaney and Bill Burr and all these other people that, if I'm doing a big venue, it's like I got to squeeze every ticket I can out of this environment. So again, push that. And I'm just giving you a context for kind of what led the decision to be where we are at. And I basically got 2 offers, one of which was for City Winery again. And last year I did a loft upstairs, which seats 160 people. Now I got an offer for the main room that seats 300. And the deal was fantastic. The money was great. And then also she got me an offer at Gotham Comedy Club. And that was the one that I had suggested, like, what about Gotham? Because that seats about 280, 290. So as opposed, I don't want to do the 100-seat venues, and I also don't want to do the 500-seat venues, so the 300's looking good. And I didn't think Gotham was going to be an option because you look at their website, and by the way, this club is like iconic. I don't know if you guys know about it or what you know about it. It's basically, there used to be a TV show called like Gotham Comedy Live, and it's just like a very famous club that I've done before way back when. And it was just so fun. And so I suggested it, not thinking much, and sure enough, she came back and had an offer. So I had the choice to do City Winery in the main room or Gotham. And I think City Winery was on a Friday, Gotham was on a Thursday. And again, like I said, the money for City Winery was fantastic, and the money for Gotham was pretty good too. And I did the thing I've done before where I opted for the better show, less money. And I took Gotham. And it was on a Thursday, and I was a little weary of that. But again, City Winery, that room in New York is big, dude. It's a big room, high ceilings. It's not banging for comedy. Again, it's like a bit of a money thing where it's like, you want to make a bunch more money, do that. But I'm like, yeah, but I'd rather have a better show, because a better show leads to better clips lead to more followers lead to more tickets. And how far could I outreach my hand? That's about the farthest it'll go. So I went with Gotham, and a Thursday, I consulted a few New York people, including my dad, who's been there quite a bit, and he's like, Thursday's a big New York night. Hit it. And so we did. And she also got me a date in Connecticut, at Stamford, which is about an hour train ride from New York. So doing that thing that I've discussed before where it's routing, it's putting another city with another city that's close by. While you're in New York, knock out Connecticut. And I did Hartford, Connecticut last November. And so I'm coming back to Connecticut less than a year later, which I don't like to do. But I've heard awesome things about this club. It's called New York Comedy Club. It's in Stamford, which I don't know what Stamford is. It sounds like Stanford, but it's not. It's a different place. It's called Stamford. And I think the only time I've ever heard of that is they mentioned it in The Office. And that's all I know. But again, I was stoked about it because they offered that a Friday night. So I was like, all right, we'll do Gotham and then a Friday night in Stamford. Let's do it. And as we're coming up on the dates, New York is selling super well to the point where there's like 20 tickets left. And the dream I had was that not only did I have a show at Gotham, but I also sold it out and we added another one. And we were about a week away. There's like maybe 20, 30 tickets left. And I was like, man, I really want to add the other show, but I don't know if this is enough tickets sold that would warrant an added show. Did I have to sell this out like 3 weeks in advance? I don't really know. And I didn't want to do the thing where I hit up my agent and was like, hey, should we add a show? Because maybe she's like, we could. I'll ask the venue. Maybe they don't love it. But everything worked out so well in which she hit me up and was like, hey, we should add a show. And I was like, fuck yeah. So we added a show. And it felt so good, man. Because that was the goal. Is to do Gotham, but to be so successful that the club was like, dude, we need more tickets available. You're moving too many. We got to add a show, man. So we added a late show, 9:45 on a Thursday for the real ones. So I was really excited about that, man. I've realized like some of the fun of this is not just like performing and having fun on stage, but it's like this game of how many tickets can I sell? It's just what I get fulfillment out of. It's kind of seeing that growth, tracking that progress. It's like, that's fun. So it was a big deal to me to add that second show. And it was moving and it was flying. But let's get to the travel. I flew direct to New York, long goddamn flight. It's so funny when you see it, and I'm sure you guys feel this way, when you see a flight time and it's like 5 hours, you're like, the fuck am I going to do for 5 hours? This is going to be so long. And then you just do it, and then you look back and you're like, how did I do it? How did I make it through that 5 hours so easily? Because in the moment you're like, oh my God, my back hurts, I'm bored. That last 30 minutes is just like so boring. But you just do it. It's weird, man. I take a lot of these. And dude, I made a mistake on the flight, man. I got a club soda, no ice, no little cup, because I feel weird about the ice on planes. This is so classic Will. I heard some article about don't eat the ice on airplanes like 6 years ago, and then I just don't now. Couldn't even tell you what the reason is. Just one little thing was like, all right, I'm not doing that ever again. Like, I remember I knew a guy in college who ate a tomato, and it made him so sick that he went to the hospital. And I was like, okay, I don't want to eat tomatoes anymore. And I don't really eat tomatoes that much anymore. That's who I am. You want to know who I am? That's who I am. So I got a club soda with the can, just so I can drink out of the can. And some would say, well, the can's dirtier than the ice. I wipe off the can, okay? And I fucking fucked up, dude. I accidentally put it on the ground face down, meaning can lip side down on the floor by accident, and now it's contaminated. I can't even drink this anymore. So I was pissed. A little thing that I was like, God damn it. And I was not going to be like, boing, hey, can I have another one? I put this on the ground and I'm a crazy person. Take the L. I was a little bit thirsty. Landed at Newark. There's 3 airports in New York. Newark, JFK, and LaGuardia. Landed in Newark, which is New Jersey. And Nolan, my sweet boy, my baby boy opener, who's blowing up right now. Go follow him. He's blowing up off his videos, and he's so funny. He landed like 7 hours earlier. So he was just, instead of taking a super expensive Uber to the hotel that he can't even check in at, he opted to just stay at the airport until I landed, which is kind of a dope move. You're just in the airport working, moving, shaking. I would do the same thing probably. As opposed to like lugging your bags around the city. It's like, bro, just chill. So I get in and I hit him. I say, hey, I'm in, he says, I'm chilling in Terminal 7. And I was like, copy that. I leave the airport and I try to figure out what kind of terminal I'm at. I'm like, okay, cool. I'm at Terminal A. And right at that point, we both went, you're saying a number, I'm saying a letter. How big are these airports? Something feels a little bit off. And then I called him and was like, yo, yeah, Terminal A. He's like, yeah, Terminal 7. I don't know where you are. I'm like, I don't know where you are too. And then I was like, wait, what airport are you at? And he's like, JFK. I'm like, oh, I'm at Newark. So I said, well, I'll see you at the hotel. Dude, we were opposite ends of the city, waiting around. We were laughing because it was like, dude, the second we hit a number letter discrepancy, we're like, this can't be good. So we took an Uber, and I had my favorite Uber driver I've had in quite some time. Dude, this is the best. And I've talked about Uber drivers before in my gripes. I got in the Uber. It was about a 45-minute ride. And I put in my AirPods to listen to a podcast. And he was playing music. And he looked in the rearview mirror, clocked me putting in headphones. And then he put in headphones himself. No music. He's locked in. I'm locked in. My favorite. Dude, he knew what was up. He clocked what I did. He made a choice. There was an understanding, a mutual understanding of what's happening right now. We're both headphone guys. Let's be in our own worlds, and let's just get there safely. I was so happy with that. It's the little things that make this shit just a little bit easier. I said this a couple weeks ago, but hotel rooms in New York are like, I'm trying to think of the word. It's an unbelievably expensive purchase. I didn't find a hotel for less than $500 a night. Unless you want to go real dicey or do like a hostel bunk bed. And come on, man. Don't hit me with that. Come on. Things are going fine. Things are going just fine. And I had to get a hotel room with 2 beds for Nolan and I to share a room. And it cost me $1,000, over $1,000 to share a room with my adult friend in New York City. Couldn't believe it. And yeah, we're both above that. We both haven't shared a room with another adult in quite some time, so we weren't stoked about it. But again, if you're sharing the room with like your best buddy, it's like, well, this is kind of fun. We don't get this often. It's kind of like we're camping. It turns out, I think there was some sort of UN thing going on in New York City. Funny enough, I still don't know. I was so in my own world. I heard that like the president may be there. I don't really know, but the Holiday Inn woman was like, basically like, yeah, that's why this is so expensive. So, chose the wrong week. Spent the money for it. I considered staying in Connecticut because it was hundreds and hundreds of dollars cheaper, but I didn't want to risk like travel problems or missing a train or I just felt weird about it. So like, let's just stay in the city. We had a fun little night. The great thing about New York is that there's food open everywhere. Whether it's pizza at 1 a.m, there's bodegas open late. It's like there's so many times where I land in a city or I'm just that there's just nothing. You got to DoorDash Papa John's and just go to bed and just let that shit sit in your body all night. Better ingredients, better pizza. I'm sick. But it's New York, so we got like some delicious pizza that was not Papa John's quality, some high quality pizza. Woke up at noon, of course, because it's East Coast. So, we're going to bed at 2, 3. We're both tired, had long days, wake up at noon. I'm like, all right, cool, we got 3 hours to do stuff. I had a crazy nose hair going on. It was so crazy that I remember it. That's how aggressive this nose hair was. Dude, I'm getting old, okay? So I got to trim my nose hairs. I got the grays coming in on the sides. I got a couple beard gray hairs. I'm getting old, man. So I had this nose hair that was like, ka 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 ka. It was so thick that it like had its own game plan for the day. It was like, oh, you're going to go to the bodega? I'm going to get more pizza because we're in New York. This thing was so thick, I was like, bro, I think this guy's going to open the show. It's more dense than Nolan. And Nolan's not a big guy, so it's not saying a lot. Dude, it was so big, and I tried to pull it out, and that's an insane thing to do. People are like, I'll just pluck it. Right, but it's connected to my fucking brain. I tug on it, my eyes start shooting water out, so that's not an option. And this thing is, I'm trying to like... bend it back into my nose so it doesn't stick out anymore. Dude, it was so aggressive. I was like, dude, get in there. And eventually I took my beard trimmer and I angled it out and then I trimmed like the edge of it, like the top of it, and it worked. And this is what I'm talking about right now. Dude, it was so aggressive. Funny enough, on Thursday, a cool little thing I did, and I did this last time I was in New York. So my agent, who works at William Morris, they're headquartered in New York, and she lives in New York. So I see her only when I'm in New York. We do kind of like our monthly calls just to check in, and then we do like our yearly visit. So I visited the office, and it's cool going to like a big agency's office because it feels a little bit like you're on Entourage. I remember the first time I came, it felt so cool, dude. She like walked me around, introduced me to everybody, and just, these are like the biggest agents in comedy, and it was just so cool, man. It really felt like I'd arrived. And this time, I've been here for a little while now, so it didn't feel like the same type of thing. We more just sat in her office and just kind of bullshitted for an hour and just talked about how everything's going. She's just stoked on everything. I'm stoked on everything. Things are just going well, and so there's not a lot of kind of anxiety attached to these conversations, and things are just feeling really good. And again, Thursday was kind of a crazy day. Didn't have a lot of time, and we had to go to the show pretty early. So by that time, after the visit, I came back, got some food, went to the club. And at that point, the early show had sold out, and then the late show was over 200 tickets, which is amazing. It felt so good to hit that point. So I'm selling more than I did last year. I think the totals ended up at almost 470 tickets total, and it was amazing. Well, it wasn't amazing. It was more of a hilarious thing as we get out of the Uber, walk up to the club, look at the marquee, and one side says Will Burkart, and the other side says Wilt Burkart, as you can see. And I'm sure you saw on social media too, because I had a good laugh about it. I don't know how it happened, but it's like the T in Burkart, they just put too high and didn't look at it once. It was like they were putting it, got distracted, and were like, that feels like the right height. Not even gonna make sure not to look up for a second. Or they looked up and they're like, I don't care. I don't get paid enough to care about the spelling. And so I'm walking up. Hey, here we go, baby. New York City sold out. Best moment ever. What the fuck? Wilt? Who's Wilt? With 2 L's? I went through the whole Wilbur debacle where everyone online thought my name was Wilbur Cart. Wilbur with 2 L's, last name Cart, which isn't a name. And now I'm Wilt with 2 L's? I don't even know what to think about it. It was like, hey guys, look at it for a second. And you're like, whoops. the tea's too high. But we had a nice laugh about it. And it still kind of like goes along with my like, I don't know. This wasn't on what I was going to say, but it's a little bit of kind of like feeling like a little bit of the underdog in the industry where I'm not this like big industry guy where, you know, all these networks are fucking with me and like, you know, ooh, Netflix is this, don't tell, Comedy Central. It's like no one really, late night. It's like none of these things I've pursued heavily, but it also just kind of goes along with this, the just us vibe of what I've always done, just doing everything myself and just me and the people doing everything together. But this doesn't really apply anymore because I'm Willie B, the headliner, the touring weekend guy. So this doesn't really apply, but there's still a part of me that feels like this underdog. And so when they spell my name wrong, I'm like, of course, because I'm still kind of an underdog in this business. Gotham itself is such a perfectly built room. It's packed in, it's low, it's just built so perfectly. And I had a good feeling about the show, but you never really know, right? And talked to the manager of the club, and he was saying, I was telling him kind of the run of show, here's how long Nolan does, here's how long I do. And this is the first time where he was like, I may need you to stretch a little bit so we can ensure that everyone gets their checks completed. And normally I like to keep a pretty tight show for you guys, you know, where Nolan will do, or if Anthony's there, you know, they'll do 20-ish, and then I'll do 50-ish. So it's a tight show. Normally a show's 90 minutes. Mine shows are usually shorter. And this is the only time I've heard a club say, I may need you to do it a little bit longer. And so we developed this system where once they're done with checks and everything, he's going to give me a light in the back of the room to indicate you can finish whenever you're ready. Or, I'm sorry, we're done. You can wrap up whenever. And so I was a little in my head going into the show because, you know, the way I do the shows now is I'm doing some jokes up top, go into some crowd work, go back into some jokes, do some crowd work, and I'm kind of going in and out of it, calling back crowd work moments, kind of having this like, I've realized actually it's kind of this like long form improv show where I'm doing this crowd worky improv stuff kind of throughout the show and trying to kind of weave everything together, and I'm doing callbacks, and I've realized on this trip that that's what my shows are turning into, which is so cool, and I think it's kind of unique to the stand-up world. And so, but with that model, it's not like I have this like perfect out and perfect ending where like I know what I'm going to end with, but I don't know when, because sometimes I'll be doing crowd work for a little while and it'll go great, I'll keep going, but sometimes it's going to go short and I got to get out of there because they're boring. And I've never had a club be like, ooh, I need you to do this amount of time. Because normally they're like, yeah, cool, whatever. And so if I'm at 47 minutes and I'm like, we're wrapping up. But this one was like, oh, I'm going to need to do like 55 maybe, which makes a difference. So I needed to do probably a little more crowd work. But the moral of why I'm bringing this up is it had me a little bit in my head during the show because I was being mindful of time and making sure I'm doing enough. And it was just kind of waiting for that light in the back of the room. So it was a lot on my plate. And but the show was absolutely electric. Holy shit, what an amazing show that first show was, man. It was just, the crowd was amazing from start to finish. They were rocking with me. They were fun. They didn't yell shit out. They were just like a perfect crowd, and it was electric. One of my absolute favorite moments ever happened where this is kind of deep into the show. And again, I'm kind of having to do a little bit more crowd work. And I asked a guy what he does. He says he's a lawyer. And I said, what type of lawyer? And he says, I do product liability. And I'm like, what does that mean? And he says, basically, let's say that you stick a fork in a toaster. I would defend the toaster. And right when he says that, we all start dying laughing. Because the fact that he says, I defend the toaster. And so you'll see the clip when I post it tomorrow, if you're watching this the day the pod comes out, but I went on this whole act out where I'm the lawyer defending a toaster. And it was just this perfect moment for me that was so unique, and I feel like other people wouldn't necessarily go there, but I like got into my actor bag and just like full out was like, Your Honor, this toaster was sitting here minding its business. Just this whole thing. I had to kind of trim it down, but I put out kind of the best of. But it was such this unique moment, and I remember afterwards, Nolan was saying, he was like, dude, when you started doing the toaster lawyer thing, he was like, man, I was like, what a gift. I was like, oh, like as a comedian just watching that, I was like, oh man, he was like, I could see your brain like working it out and firing it, and it was so funny, dude. And there was a lot of those good moments, and so I was finishing up some crowd work right before I do my last few jokes, and he gives me the light at the perfect time, like right as I'm wrapping up some crowd work, and I can go right into my last like 3 minutes of jokes. He lit me perfectly. So I was like, wow. So I was so relieved to be like, I timed this perfectly, and I can just end the show as I normally would. I think I did 55 minutes, and I got arguably the biggest applause I think I've ever gotten. And I've said that before. I said that on Sunnyvale podcast, talking about how I've gotten just this amazing applause at the end of the show, and the show is the same, man. It was like, it's just amazing to, that's, I'm realizing one of the most special moments is when I put the mic in the stand and I'm just taking in the applause. This is the first time I noticed like many people took out their phones and took pictures of me at that time. I reposted a bunch of them, but it was like, I saw just like a bunch of phones, man, which means like people give a fuck. And it was just a really, really special feeling, and I'm really trying to soak up that feeling as much as I can. The meet and greet was incredible. There were so many people. New York does not buy merch, by the way. Really curious as to why. Like, I sell these posters that sometimes they fly. I think I sold like 4. It was crazy. We joked that we're like, dude, maybe they just like don't have room for a poster in their tiny ass New York apartment. They got 200 square feet. They don't have poster real estate. So, big first show, and then, you know, it was such a quick turnaround. So it's like with this long show, with the meet and greet, it's like, yeah, we get back downstairs and I'm taking a breath, and the next show starts in like 20 minutes. It's exhausting. And there's times where it's like, when do I get to be like feeling fulfilled and excited and happy and grateful? It's like, I don't have time to feel that because I need to like get some sort of hydration and caffeine and food into my body so I can do this whole thing again. It's been hard lately to be like, when do I feel happy and full? I don't have time to right now. I need to go. And the second show was great, was not as good as the first show, which can happen. Late show. It's late on a Thursday, dude. People got off work and they've been waiting for like 4 hours for the show. It was still a great show, but it just wasn't as good as the early show, which, again, not that surprising. And about 15 minutes into the set, I realized that I have to pee. And I had about 40 minutes left, so I was like, uh-oh, this could be a problem. And it was. Dude, like 30 minutes into the set, I'm doing well, and everything's going great. It's like a great show. Crowd work's fun, but I have to pee so bad that it's almost a distraction. I am not as present in the moment because I have to pee so fucking bad. And if I was a real G, I'd be like, Nolan, hop on stage. I'm going to go pee-pee. I'll be right back. But I had to just deal with it. And not just deal with it, but like, I can't even get off early. I got to wait for the light in the back of the room to let me know that they're done doing checks. And so it was really hard, man. I again, it was still a good show. I don't think I did as good as I could have done on the, like it was on the early show, just because, dude, I had to pee so fucking bad. And it was such a good lesson to learn of like, dude, like, pee 3 times in the green room before you get out there, man. Like, do not let this happen. Thank God I had such a fire early show. And again, second show was fire, but it was just, I just was a little bit distracted and detached because I was going to pee my pants. And we hit like, dude, I was doing so much crowd work and I hit 55 minutes and I didn't get a light. And I was like, dude, I got to go. I'm sorry. You guys got to figure this out because I can't do more stand-up. I got to pee. They're slowing down. I got to get out of here. And so I got out of there at about the same amount of time. And what we landed on is that if I ever get off early before the light, that they're going to have Nolan come back on stage and kind of just, keep the audience company as they're wrapping up, which is the hardest thing you can possibly do in comedy. And so we were like, hopefully we won't get to that point. But on the late show, we did. So Nolan comes back on stage, which was not the normal plan, but he comes back on, and I was like, I remember we walked by, and I was like, dude, I did like an hour. How do they need you to kill time? And he's like, So he goes on stage, and he's legit up there for 2 minutes. People are leaving, people are paying their bills, and he's just up there like bombing, trying to be funny, maybe do a joke or two, and people are like not caring. And I felt bad for him because I'm like, dude, you shouldn't have to do that. But it was what the club needed. They had one of their terminals go down, And so they needed more time. And I was like, hey, my bladder's going to explode, and I've done a lot of comedy tonight, so I'm going to go. And so shout out to Nolan. Had to go up and just eat it. Not eat it. He had to eat just this really, really difficult moment. And he's such a nice guy that I'm sure he did great. But I remember he got off and he was like, dude, he was like, I was up there just bombing. I'm like, dude, that's so hard. But I'm just giving you all the details of the night, but it was such a special night. I was wiped after. Little confused. Well, do I even want to say this? No, I'm not even going to bother saying this. Well, whatever. I will. This isn't a big deal at all, but this is the first time that a club ever didn't pay me the night of. And that's how they do things at this club. They pay you like the next day, or they wire you the money a week later. And I have this policy where I just never leave the club without getting paid. And I was like really surprised because it was a good check, and I was like looking forward to having the money. And I don't want to like fly home with no check. It just makes me really anxious. And what if they mail a check and it gets lost, or I don't know, having to follow up with them. Hey, did you mail it yet? And so I was really like, I was so concerned that they didn't pay me the night of, because I was like, oh no, like how's this going to work? And so it was I was just kind of stressed out by that. But that's not a knock on them. That's just how they do things. I just wasn't aware going into it. And so that's a little behind the scenes of comedy for you. But it's interesting. When I was, the night was over, we ate at a diner and go back to the hotel, and we have Connecticut the next day. And I had a real sense of relief that it was over, because the big ones are intense, man. The big shows are stressful, and you want them to go well. There's a mystery of how's it going to go. Are they going to like me? It's just, and of course they're going to like me, but it's just like, and there's pressure, right? I mean, my agent came to the first show, and it was just like real pressure. New York City iconic comedy club pressure. And so when it was over and it went well, I was like, oh, I was like so relaxed. Going to Connecticut, I'm like, this feels like such low stakes. I'm just like, dude, let's just have fun with this one, because like the big one's over, And sure enough, the next day we got some clarity of the payment. They were like, yeah, you can come by. I'm leaving on Saturday. They said you can come by the club in the morning and pick up the check before you go to the airport. And I'm like, yeah, doing that. And we took the train to Connecticut. Went to Grand Central Station, which is like an amazingly kind of, I think, iconic train station. And funny enough, everything is like on your phones nowadays with apps and tickets on the app. And so it was funny, like trying to find out how to buy tickets when like everyone else just has the app, and we're like acting like it's 1985. We're like, where's the terminal to punch in the buttons to buy the ticket? We like couldn't find it anywhere. I had to like ask security guys, hey, excuse me, where do they buy the tickets for the train? I think a train, like an Amtrak train, is the best mode of transportation. I think it's just the best. It's relaxing. It's smooth. It's comfy. It's just, you don't have to do anything. With driving, you have too much control. Flying, sometimes you have a little lack of control where you're like, oh, what's happening? But a train is just like, bro, we're just going. So relaxing, man. We get to the Airbnb. We went from sharing a room at arm's distance sleeping together to being in a 2-bed, 2-bath. We were like, this is luxury. Broke a thing in the Airbnb immediately. Dude, there's these giant blinds in front of a sliding glass door, and I was pulling on the blinds, and I'm pulling it, and I'm like, this is too hard to be pulling these blinds to open them. And I'm like, second pull, I'm like, still feels too hard, shouldn't be doing it. And I'm like, third pull, I'm like, well, I want the blinds up. Snap the thing off the wall. They didn't fall, but it like snapped the thing off, and I'm like, welcome to Connecticut. Whoops. Walked around Stamford, Connecticut. It was nice to be there because New York was so chaotic. New York is such a panic attack. It's always just very like busy, and cars are people smoking, and coffee, people dodging people, things dripping on you. But Connecticut was just this easy, breezy, just quiet East Coast town. It was just really cute and fancy. Almost seemed like a fake town. It was just nice and quiet. It was one of the most quiet cities. Salt Lake City was another place that was really quiet. But Stamford, Connecticut, quiet. Ticket sales were not great for this show. This was one of those ones where I got the ticket sales in advance, and I was like, uh-oh. I haven't had any uh-ohs yet on this tour. Knock on wood. But this one was like, uh-oh, what's happening? So day of, I think it ended up at like 100, which is fine because it was at like 50, 40, and I was like, oh shit. But it got to like over 100, and I was like, okay, that's a show. It's fine. I sold 100 tickets when I was in Hartford, so I didn't know what to expect. So 100 again, I'm like, that's fine, I guess. Went to the club, fantastic club, seats 240, low ceilings. Everyone's facing the front, just like a solid comedy club. The green room was bigger than the showroom. The green room was massive, had a pool table. It was great. And I remember Nolan went up, and the audience just sounded like amazing. The audience sounded great. And again, I was chilling for this show. The high stakes show was done. Now I'm going to go have fun. I wore a hat for the first time on this tour, like just chilling. And I went into it being like, the audience is going to be great. It's going to be I bet this is going to be a more fun show than even New York was. And I get on stage, and I knew pretty quickly that the audience was not amazing. Dude, they stopped clapping for me like before I made it to the stage. And I was like, okay. Bit of a red flag. And I'm like, what's up, Connecticut? And they're like, woo. And I was like, oh, man. Okay. And the show was good. Like, I always work hard and put on the best show I possibly can, but I just never felt like I really, like, hit them hard. I was actually making fun of them because of how quiet the town was. I was like, it was like the audience was the same. It was just this, like, quiet, reserved, introverted vibe that I don't do the best with because I'm kind of big. And there were some big moments. I had some really fun times with them, and I liked this audience, but there was still, like, I was missing this little piece. And it, again, like, when they don't clap that much for you, you're like, okay, you know, I get what the show is. And, you know, was doing my normal crowd work and had a fun few moments, but I was getting also some really kind of boring answers, and it's not their fault. Crowd work is gambling. I don't need people in the crowd to be funny. I just need to have some sort of unique or interesting answers that I can do things with, but I didn't feel like I really got a ton of that. For example, it'd be like, oh, you went on a date recently. Why did you agree to go out with the guy? And they were like, I don't know. And I was like, okay, you work in a restaurant. How do you like working in a restaurant? It's fine. What's your favorite part about it? I don't know. I'm like, okay. Felt like I was pulling teeth a little bit. And also, maybe I was just a little bit depleted from just this crazy New York night. And I think I feel like I'm just kind of yapping about this, but I think it's more about the show was great, but I had just a different feeling of it. You know, I was up there like, man, I shouldn't have worn this stupid hat. I would have done better if I didn't wear a hat. Just like, I just felt like we didn't get to where I wanted to in the show. It was still good. It was still a great show, but I wanted a little bit more. And at the end, I had this weird moment with this guy, man, that really messed up the vibe of the show where, like, at the end of the show, we're probably talking 40, 45 minutes into the show. I talked to this guy in the front I asked how tall he is. He looks very tall. He's 6'9", and I was like, whoa. And people in the crowd were like, stand up. And he didn't really argue. He was like, okay, I'll stand up. I didn't say anything. He stood up and was like, hey, everyone cheers. He sits back down. Funny moment, ha ha ha. So I'm gonna ask him some more questions, and the first thing I ask is, what's your favorite part about being 6'9"? And he's like, I don't know. I'm like, okay, cool. Here's another question. What's the hardest part about being 6'9"? And he was like, this, meaning people being like, stand up, look at him. And he was saying it in a way that he was like, this is your fault. He was like, this, and he was like, yeah, you made me stand up. And I was like, I didn't do anything. I feel like I was in a Tim Robinson sketch. Like, I didn't do this. I didn't fucking do this. And it was like kind of weird. I was like, no, man, I didn't say anything, actually. I wouldn't put you in that position. And he was like, it just got weird and there was nothing funny about it. And the crowd was already like not 100% with me. So it was just this weird disconnect. And then I was like, okay, I got two options. Number one, I pivot, I find someone else to talk to, or I pivot back into jokes and close the show with jokes that I know crush. Let's just do that. So I pivoted back into the closing jokes, and they did pretty good, and then the show ended. So I think I ended the show with a little bit of a bad taste in my mouth just because of this weird moment that people just felt weird about, as did I, and it just wasn't my favorite way to end the show. But I did my best, and there were still a lot of fun moments, and everyone was very nice. But that's showbiz, baby. Not every show is going to be a 10 out of 10. I'm still very grateful for everyone that came out. It's a fun little town. And also, that club didn't pay me night of either. They had to like wire me the money, and I just have to learn to deal with it. There's something that feels weird about it, but again, that's showbiz. That's how they do things. What am I going to argue? Nope. I'm going to be like, thanks for having me. Hope this all works out. But I had a great time. And coming back, dude, it was such a crazy day. Coming back, I had to wake up. This is what I had to do before my flight. My flight was at 3:30. I had to wake up. These are all the things I had to accomplish. I had to wake up in the Airbnb. Forgot I had to check out. Did not factor that in. So wake up, clean up, check out, walk to get coffee, Uber to the train, take the train an hour to New York, get off at Grand Central Station, Uber to Gotham Comedy Club to pick up my check, get in another Uber, an hour to JFK for my flight. That was the day. It was chaos. So by the time I got to the airport, I was like, dude, I've already been traveling for 5 hours. Like, dude, I gotta get on a 6-hour flight. Gassed. Went up to the guy, and out of curiosity, the ticket agent rather, and I said, hey, do you guys have any upgrades available? Because, I had it in my head. I was like, if this is the amount of money I would pay for an upgrade in general. And he says, yes, we have one JetBlue Mint seat, which is first class. And I asked how much it was, and he said it, and it was a lot of money. And I said, you know what? Swipe it. And I got the last seat in first class, and I upgraded myself because I had a long fucking day. And it was a long trip, and I did great money-wise. And I said, you know what? Swipey, swipe, swipe. Get me in that little pod. It was such a fun feeling of, like, going from what I thought the flight experience was going to be to then being first-class Mint Boy. I was like, dude, the vibes violently shifted in my favor. Until we get on the plane. Dude, we're in... this is something I've never experienced before, and I still don't really know what happened. We are on the flight, on the runway, and they said because of the weather was kind of bad, so they said because of low visibility, we have to stagger the takeoffs. So we have to wait. We're in about a 30-row line of planes waiting to take off, so it's going to be about 45 minutes to an hour. And everyone's like, bummer, but that's flying. And I'm chilling. I'm in first, so I'm like, bro, it's all good. I'll be here. Going for a while, chilling, and then we're moving along. So you're feeling the plane kind of driving around, and then eventually we drive, and then we stop, and then I look to my left, and the guy in the aisle goes, we're back at the gate. And sure enough, we're back at the gate. And I'm like, why? No one knows. We're just at the gate, and the flight attendants are chilling. The captain pops out, hey, what's going on, guys? I'm like, did I snort a Xanax and pass out and wake up and we're in LA? Why are we at the gate? Why am I looking at the captain's bald head? This doesn't feel right. And they said that they had to go back to the gate to remove 2 passengers from the flight. And I think it was people in first class because I remember the flight attendant talking to the people in the first row kind of in like a this seems like a problem conversation. Not like there was no yelling, there was no physical things going on. It was more just like a stern talking to, and again, couldn't tell much what was going on. Didn't think it was a concern, but I think those people were like, get me the fuck off the plane. A couple theories. Number 1, these could be entitled first class people. Not me. I'm a man of the people. I'm a man of the people, so I'll be in coach, all good. I'm with you guys. I'm up mint. This is a special occasion. But these first class elitists could be like, I don't want to be on this plane anymore. Oh, there's an hour delay? Get me off. And then the people were like, okay, we'll get you off the plane. Option number 2 could be that they have a connecting flight that because of the delay, they're going to miss it. So they said, I'm already home. I'm going back home. I think the part that blows my mind is that the flight attendants and the captains and everyone were like, oh, you want off the plane? Sure thing. No problem. Let's just turn around, lose our place in this hour-long line to let you off and not worry about the 200 other people who were in the plane. Still don't know what happened, but I know that if we got eyes on these people, there would have been a riot. And they wouldn't have made it back home because I would have got beat up. Because not only do we have to go back to the gate, but we had to refuel, recater for an hour, and then leave the gate and get back in line for another hour. So it was a 3-hour delay. So I was on the plane. The flight was 5 hours, 8 hours on the plane. And the moral of the story is thank God I upgraded because life was good. And if I was in coach, I don't know if I would have made it. So it's almost like life rewarded me for making a bold, expensive purchase by giving me the gift of first class and through this delay. And funny enough, I bet on football on Sunday and I won almost the exact amount of money that I spent buying a first class ticket. So the universe works itself out. That's the podcast. I appreciate you listening to this longer version of the Willie B pod. Again, come see me in Atlanta tomorrow, Thursday, October 3rd, and then Richmond, and then Virginia Beach, and then Pittsburgh, Buffalo. Running and gunning, baby. And just a bit of housekeeping for the podcast. I don't think I'm going to be doing the pod every week for the time being, just because it's, I can only come up with such new content for you where it feels like every week's kind of becoming the same thing. So I'm going to maybe do it every other week just to let some more stories pile up, more things just happen in my life to report on. When every week is, I'm kind of running out of things other than like, here's the travel, here's the Uber, here's the flight, here's the show. It's like, I kind of want to give you guys more of a unique experience. And I think that's going to be, not being as frequent, if that makes sense. So I'm still figuring out how I want to do it, but I just want to give you guys the heads up. So if I may not be back next week, but I should be back the week after. And hope you understand. I'm always trying to iterate and make this the best product I can, while also like taking care of myself and not burning myself the fuck out, because I am doing everything myself. So I appreciate you understanding. I appreciate you being here. More to come. And yeah, man, that's the pod. Have a good rest of the week. And I will see you on the road, and I will see you on the podcast either next week or the week after. See ya.